Okay, good Tavach, everyone. As we are sponsored in our tour through Avoda Zara by A.B. Spry, L'Refuah Shalema, for Taiba Reiza Bas Hinda, and for Great Tzibuyim for their daughter and grandchildren. We are sponsored by Baruch Ian, Le'ilui Nishmas, Yaakov Chaim Ben Abba, Esther Bas Yona, Avram Ben Shmuel HaKohen. We are sponsored for the physical, emotional, and spiritual protection for Yeshua Menachem Mendel Ben Bela Shendel Rivka. We're sponsored by Shalom Fogel, Nishmas Yaakov Zev Ben Yehuda Ayer, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas Gad, Yosef Ben Tzim Ben Yaakov Zev, and for a great shidduch for Chayat Tzivya Bas Shoshana Gittel. We're sponsored by Eddie Chazan for the safety of Klal Yisrael and the Yeshua of the IDF and their safety. And we're sponsored by Menachem Yemansky with the tefillah that all those that are waiting for a zivik should find it quickly and easily. We are holding at the very top of Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, very top of Daf Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, and now the Gemara has another way of answering the question that on the one hand it said in our Mishnah that you're not allowed to stable an animal by a guy because they're chayshish for bestiality, and then on the other hand we learned in the Brisa that you're allowed to buy an animal from a guy for a carbon, seeming to be that they're not suspected of bestiality. So Ravina says, "Lo kasha, there's no difficulty. Ha lechatchila ha di'eved. Lechatchila, you shouldn't stay." Let's see if we could mute people over here. Okay. Lechatchila, you shouldn't stable an animal. Hadi Eved, but once it's after the fact, we don't suspect them that they did bestiality with the animal to the point that we shouldn't be allowed to buy a carbon from them. Says the Gemara, Minas Simra Deshani Ben Lechatchila Ben Di'eved. How do we know that there's a difference in the first instance and after the fact? Because we find that by a woman who was captured. A woman shouldn't be alone with them because they're suspected of bestiality. But a woman that was taken a prisoner amongst Gayim, if she was taken because of a debt that was owned, Muteris Labala, she's permitted to her husband, even if she was married to a Kayin. Now, if she's married to a Kayin and she's violated, she's also to her husband. But here we say that if she was taken for money, she's permitted to her husband. But Al Yadei Nefashis, but if she was taken because of a death sentence, then Asur Labala. So, but if she was taken for money, we see that we're not suspicious, and but we said that she shouldn't be alone with them. That in the first instance she shouldn't be alone. But if she is alone, then we're not suspected that they violated her. Says, well, no, that might be different. We might. Even b'di'eved, we're afraid that they would have violated her. But if it's for money, they're not going to violate her because of the worry that then they won't get their money. They're worried that they might not get their money. Teda, we should know this is the case. The Ketani Sefer, because it says in the Sefer, Al Yedei Nefashis Asur Labala. If she's taken for a capital crime, then she's also to her husband, because then they don't care and they'll violate her. And therefore there's nothing more to speak about. There's no proof of this difference between Lechatchila and L'di'eved. Reb Das has a different answer. Reb Das Amalei Kasha ha Reb Eliezer ha Rabbanan. It's a machlokes whether we're chayshish for bestiality. The Tanan Gabei Paras Chatas, it says about the paraduma, Reb Eliezer Omer Einen Nekachas Min Ovdei Kechavim. The paraduma can't be bought from an idolater. V'chacham matirin, and the chacham permit it. My la b'hakam iflagi. The Reb Eliezer Savar Chayshin L'Revia. we're worried for Bishiali. And that would be the authorship of our Mishnah that says you can't stable an idol with an animal with an idolater. And the Rabbanan say that we're not worried, and we could buy the Para Aduma because we're not worried about Bishiali, and that would be the authorship of the Brisa that says if you could buy an animal from them for a carbon. Says who says? Maybe everybody holds that you're not suspected for Bishiali. And the Machlokes by the Para Aduma is a different concern. Whether you suspect that the guy put a bundle on top of the animal, because it says Lo Allah Aleha oil, it can't have anything put upon it. If you put on a bundle of sack, pasla. Ube for the egla rufa, the heifer that we break its neck because of an unsolved homicide, it's not enough to disqualify it to put it on, you have to pull it. Because over there it says by the egla rufa that ashaloi moshach aleha oil, that it wasn't pulled. Ube egla ad shetim shapa. So Ma'asav, Rebbe Eliezer holds chayshinon that the guy put something on, and therefore you can't buy it from him. Ma'asav alei chayshinon. Says that can't be the machlokes, because no guy would be stupid enough to risk ruining a invaluable paraduma by putting something on. Mishum nicha persa, because of a little benefit of putting something to rest on the animal, loy mafsid tuva, he wouldn't risk losing the tremendous worth of a paraduma. So the Gemara says, Hachanami, then why should we suspect bestiality? Lema mishmar no persa, because of a little pleasure, loy mafsid tuva, says the Gemara, no, because by a sexual desire, hasam yitzrei takfai, even though he's going to suffer a great loss, but his passion got the better of him. Says the Gemara, V'dilma dekuli alma loy chayshin l'ravia. Maybe everyone is not suspecting of bestiality. The reason why Rebbe Eliezer says you can't buy paraduma from a guy is a totally different reason, because he darshans the pasuk. V'achatayim time of Rebbe Eliezer k'detani shila. The Tani Shila, my time at Rebbe Eliezer, what's the reason of Rebbe Eliezer? Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yikhu al eilecha. The pasuk says, speak to the b'nei Yisrael, and v'yikhu eilecha, you should take it for you. And we read it, yakichu. It should be transferred from you from a b'nei Yisrael. V'yikhu eilecha b'nei Yisrael yakichu. It should be b'nei Yisrael that should allow it to be bought. In other words, you should buy it from a yid. You shouldn't buy it from a guy. Says no, it can't be a specific halacha by paraduma. That Rebbe Eliezer disqualifies not just by paraduma, but also to buy all karbanis from a guy. That's because over there by the paraduma it says yikhu bishlam parak kicha elakul karbanis kicha ksibu. Does it say kicha? Says the Gemara. Okay, so scratch that. But vidilma adkan like pligal rabban alei de Rebbe Eliezer that you're not worried of bestiality. That's only elabapara didamel yikarin. That's only by a paraduma that's very expensive, so he's not going to risk it for bestiality. Aval b'shar karbanis maybe modulate. Maybe the Rabbanan agree that you can't buy. Says Gemara, but there has to be an opinion that you could buy. Ve'alahad sanya, that which we learned. Ve'alahad sanya, that which we learned. Loikin mehem be'emel a carbon, that we could buy from them an animal for a carbon. Money. If the Rabbanan also hold that we're chayshish for bestiality, who would it be? Loi Rebbe Eliezer v'loi Rabbana. V'oi Tanya Behedya, as we welcome in Ruvain Shanit, 4 lines from the top of Chav Gimel Amud Beis, moving at a very rapid clip over here, Erev Tzum Gedalia, V'oi Tanya Behedya, we learned outright, Mayu Sivu Le'chavroi L'Rebbe Eliezer. What did the colleagues ask Rebbe Eliezer? Rebbe Eliezer, you said you can't buy a carbon from a guy? It says, cold sign, it says all of the sheep of Kedar, all of the sheep of Kedar are goyim, yikavtzulach, will be gathered to you at the end of days, and yalu l'ratzon al mizbechi, and it will be brought as a favorable offering on your altar. So obviously the Rabbanan hold that you could bring the animals of a goy as a korban. So now the Gemara says, okay, let's take a pause, let's take a step back. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Let's take a step back over here as we welcome in Mo Kushner. Mo, we're holding on Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis, and we're holding 6 lines from the top. 6 lines from the top as we welcome in. Yeah. Welcome, Dr. Guy, as we are holding 6 lines from the top of Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis. So the Gemara now says, everybody, ad kan le'pligi ela b'chshasha. The only argument is whether you could buy a paraduma from a guy and whether you're concerned if there was bestiality or not. Aval hecha de vadei rava, but if the bestiality was certainly done with the red cow, pasla, it's disqualified. Now that's a big chiddush, because that seems to mean that the paraduma has kedushas haguf. Because if it only has kedushas damim and it's only considered bedek kabayis, why should it be disqualified? So the Gemara says, Shmami, no, do you mean to conclude from here the para kache mizbeachi? Now remember, the paraduma is not offered on the altar. It's burned. But Shmami, no, the para kache mizbeachi, the kache bedek kabayis, because if it's only for its value and it only has a kedusha of temple maintenance, mi mifsala baravia, would it be disqualified by bestiality? Says, you have a point. It definitely is only kedushas damim. But since it says by the paraduma chatas that it's a chatas, that's why it has the laws of kachem mizbeach. Shani para the chatas kaya rachmana. The para is different because it's called the sin offering. Says, that's a problem. Because if you're going to say that it has a din of a sin offering, then it should be disqualified if it was born through cesarean section. Because a chatas is no good if it's a cesarean section, so it should be disqualified. We learned in the Raisik, these should be yotzei daifen if you sanctified it when it was born as a cesarean section, psula, Reb Shimon machshir. So what does Reb Shimon do with the fact that you call it chatas? Reb Shimon is going according to his reason, that he says that a cesarean section is considered a regular birth. You see, the Rabbanan hold that a cesarean section doesn't have the tumah of 7 days for a male and 14 days for a female. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have the 33 days of Yemei Tara for a male and the 66 days of Yemei Tara for a female. But Reb Shimon holds that it does. So, okay, so that's the reason why a paraduma is good, because he considers a cesarean section a normal birth. But it's not true. He agrees that by kachim, she'ein a kaddish. So why would he hold that a yotzei daifen is good? Obviously, because he holds that a paraduma is not a kachim mizbeach. So obviously, you can't say that it's considered like a chatas. Ella says, it's a different reason. You know why bestiality disqualifies by a paraduma, even though it's not kachim mizbeach? Ella shani para. Since a mum disqualifies, if it has a blemish, one of the blemishes, it's disqualified. So once, if a mum disqualifies it, so then bestiality and idolatry also disqualify, because bestiality and idolatry are considered blemishes. So dvar erva b'avodah zara nami paisel ba. Why? Because it says ki mashchasam bahem mumbam. Its corruption is in them, and therefore it is blemished. Now hashchasa is either arayis or avodah zara. V'tanu Rabbi Shmuel kol makom shenema hashchasa. Whenever it says hashchasa, ein ela dvar erva v'avodah zara. It's either a matter of immorality, like bestiality, or idolatry. Dvar erva dichsiv ki yishkes kol basar es darka ela aretz. By the Mabel, it says all flesh was corrupted on the land. That means they were all mated with different kinds. V'avodah zara dichsiv pen tashchis, unless you be corrupt v'asisam lachem pesel and make yourself an image. And therefore, v'har paranami, so by the paraduma, hayalumum paisaba, since it's disqualified by a blemish, dvar erva v'avidiskachavim pasaba, so bestiality, or if it's worshipped or given as a gift to an idol, it also passes. Now, Gufa. I should pause to welcome in everybody, as we welcome in Eddie Chazan, Yisrael Fisher, Shimon Klein, Ben Sion Cohn, Saba, Shimon Deer, Irving Fishbaum, Menachem Umansky, Yitzi Fuchs, Michal Abram, Mel Zachter, A.B. Spry, Yaakov Warman, Yitzi Muller, Nachman Chapler, Dr. Black, Ruvain Shannet, Rabbi Kranz, Mo Kushner, Dr. Guy, Shelley Zeitler, Michal Akta, Stephen Holtzman, Barish Kesselman, Moshe Lehman, Richard Rosebach, Ilya Shutman, and David Helfgott. Before we go any further, first of all, let me tell you the schedule. Tomorrow, Shivasa B'Tamas, and Irving and Shelley, you could put this on the chat. Shivasa B'Tamas, shir will be at 10:15 after we break the fast. So shir tomorrow night, special time at 10:15. Shir tomorrow night, again, shir tomorrow night at 10:15. Special time just for tomorrow night because of the fast. Also, this is an interesting story. I want to give the item a welcome to an invitation to an interesting event. I was called, I knew nothing about this, but I was called by somebody that 3 people needing shidduchim for their children made up to learn for 40 days my Sefer Power Bench. And on the 39th day, one of them became Kala or a Chassan, I don't even know. And so that took root, and the next time 60 people did it for 40 days, learning power benching. The 40th day is tomorrow, and they asked me to give them Divrei Chizik. So I don't even know these people, but everybody is invited to join. I'm going to do it on Zoom at 11:30 tomorrow morning. So if anybody wants to come on at 11:30 tomorrow morning, zoomdaf.com, meeting code RMMW, you're invited to join. I don't know what to expect, but I will say Divrei Chizik, that I guess is good for all of us.
It will be recorded also for the YouTube?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think I will. I think I will.
How's the Victor doing?
Baruch Hashem, he's in the rehab.
Hashem should come home already.
Amen. Amen. Okay. So anyway, we're holding now 10 lines from the bottom, 10 lines from the bottom of Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis Gufa. Tani Sheila taught, my time at Rebbe Eliezer. What's the reason, Rebbe Eliezer, that he says that you cannot buy a paraduma from a guy? So he said, D'chsiv daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yikchu, and we darshan b'nei Yisrael yakichu, that it should be only transferred by a b'nei Yisrael. It should only be bought by a yid. Ve'ein oiv dekacham yakichu. Says the Gemara. Then when it comes to giving to the Beis Hamikdash, el mi'ata daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yikchu li truma, Hakanami the Bnei Yisrael yakichu ve'einav de kachavim yakichu, that Goyim can't give money to the building of the Mishkan, to the building of the temple. V'chitei ma'achanami v'am Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. We know that Dama ben Nesina, we bought for him the onyx stones for the ephod of the Kohen Gadol. Shalu as Rabbi Eliezer, Areichem kibbut of aim. They asked Rabbi Eliezer, how far does honoring a parent go? See what an idolater, a pagan, did for his father in Ashkelon. V'Dama ben Nesina Shemai. His name was Dama ben Nesina. Pam achas bikshu mimenu avonim le'ephod. One time they sought for him stones for the ephod, and it was worth b'shishim ribuy schar. It was worth a profit of $600,000. Rav Kahana Masni b'shmoinim riba, 800,000. But the key to the chest that it was in was under his father's head, and he didn't wake him up, so he lost the sale. Now, the Taisus Rid asks Akasha in Kedushin, but it says kibbut av, we paskin kibbut av emi shel aviv. So if he's going to lose $800,000 or $600,000, he would have to be reimbursed by his father. So the Taisus Rid says that's true by kibbut, but it's not true by tsar. Here, waking up his father would have been mitzar him. That you're not allowed to do. So the Gemara says, so you see that you could buy stuff from the Goyim. Says the Gemara, well, by all of them it says nechoshes, v'chesef, v'zav, with a connecting vav, attaching it to the din of yakichu. But avnei shnoyam, it doesn't have a vav. Avnei shoyam hifzik koinyan. Says the Gemara, but after avnei shoyam it says another vav, the avnei meluim, the stones that filled the choshen. Vav avnei meluim kasev ksiv the hodar arvei. It rejoins it to the beginning of the parsha. V'oit ketani seif, it says beferish that they bought the paraduma from Dama ben Messina. L'shana acheres noldu lo paraduma be'edroi. There was born to him a red cow. Nichnesu chachmei Yisrael etzoi. The sages of Israel came. Amalem yoidei ani bechem shimani mevakish mechem kol mamen sheba'olam. I could ask you any money in the world, atem noisnali. But achshav eini mevakish mechem alo oisem mamen shefsareti b'shvil abba. I'm going to only ask you to make up for me what I lost. I'm only going to ask for you either 600,000 or 800,000. So you see, they bought a paraduma from a guy. What about the drasha of Yakichu? Says, you know what? They didn't buy it from him. There was a middleman. There was a middleman, a Yid. The Yid brought it from him, and then they brought it from the Yid. Okay, we're going to just pause a moment to change the channel over here.